In the Shadow of the Valley by Maggot Moshpit. Chapter 12. Frey had never seen Frostblight in such a flurry of activity and excitement. The main square was decked out with makeshift streamers and banners, and a constant hammering sound could, for the first time in a while, be heard from somewhere other than the forge. He grunted under the load of wood he was carrying as he lugged it towards the construction site of a large stage. He set it down and sighed.
Phew, that should do it.
A wolf named Devon straightened his back and groaned.
Ugh, my back screams in anguish. Why don't you nail down these last boards, Frey?
All right, friend.
Frey climbed onto the stage and took the hammer from Devon.
Pass the boards up, will you?
Devon groaned.
But my back!
Come on, how can someone have back spasms at a time like this? Rejoice!
Devon grabbed a board and pushed it half-heartedly into the stage. The wood was not very good. It had been sitting in the feline's storeroom since the last day of flame, and was riddled with nail holes and water damage. It was strong, despite this.
Frey, I wonder about something.
And what was that?
He lined up the board with a gap in the stage floor and fumbled with a nail. Devon got ready with another board.
Well, it's just weird that you celebrate the Day of Fire with us, because you're a feline.
Which is it? The Day of Flame or Fire? Anyway, I celebrate your Day of Flame because it is fun.
There was a pause as he hammered the board into place. Devon passed up the next board.
What about the connections to the Creation Day? Don't you believe in La Roja or whatever false god you felines worship? No offense.
Frey took the board.
Listen, I never believed in the gods.
What? How do you have a purpose in life?
Frey thought for a moment as he once again rammed home a nail.
I've asked myself that question many a time, and I've not come to a conclusion. The best guess I have is I live because I live. Nothing more, nothing less.
Devon tilted his head in confusion.
But, you know what? Never mind. As long as you're on our side.
And I am, friend.
There was another long pause, until Devon spoke quietly.
A lot less people would die if more people didn't believe in gods, I reckon.
Frey stopped and looked over at Devon.
Perhaps. But it's not that simple.
Devon shook his head.
No, think about it. Your people believe that canines are evil and subatrian, right? Well, I assume it's because of something La Roja said. And if no one believed in him, there would be peace.
It works both ways. No one would believe in Drafrasa either.
I didn't think of that. I mean, it's obvious, yeah. I just want all this shit to end, Frey. I wish they would just change their ways.
Frey wagged his finger.
A lot of people would say that about Drifrasa followers, you know.
Devon passed up the last board.
We believe in peace. How could anyone disagree?
What if a feline fell in love with a canine?
That's macht. A sin.
But why?
Because it never works. Such couples cannot bear children.
Frey finished the last board, then stood and stretched.
Many people would disagree. I, for one, think the Atrian heart is free.
Devon cracked his back and shrugged.
To each his own. Say, isn't that Tojzenka over there?
Where? She shouldn't be up.
Tojzenka was standing in front of one of the stalls, looking rather distraught. Frey jumped off the stage and joined Devon as they walked over to her. Devon called out,
Tojzenka! What are you doing up? You should be in bed.
She whirled around and looked at the two. Her face was totally flushed, and her eyes appeared foggy.
I didn't want to miss the festival. It's Troy's favorite time of the year.
Frey put his arm around her and tried leading her towards her hut. She shivered and was extremely cold to the touch.
The festival isn't until tomorrow, my dear. Come on. You're running a fever. You shouldn't be out and about.
She struggled free.
No. I need to spend time with my daughter. Let me go. The festival is starting.
She's delirious. Where's her mate, Halen? He knows about herbs and such. Maybe he can put her to sleep.
Last I saw, he was in the forge. Stay here and make sure she stays warm and safe. The sadness within her will make her sickness worse, I fear. Try and cheer her up.
He quickly ran towards the forge as Devon removed his thick coat.
Here, put this on.
Tojzenka wrapped herself in the coat slowly.
All right. It is a little chilly, isn't it?
She shivered, glancing around in confusion.
Mr. Devon? My daughter? Have you seen her? She was just here moments ago. I saw her.
Devon awkwardly patted Tozhenka on the shoulder.
Listen, your daughter is fine. You'll be able to see her soon.
Tozhenka seemed to relax slightly. She turned towards Devon, but spotted something past him that made her cower.
Look out!
A pair of feline soldiers were making their usual patrol.
It's just some soldiers. Nothing to worry about.
The soldiers turned and walked towards the two. Tozhenka's breathing quickened.
No. Now they already took my daughter. Now they've come for me. Help!
She yelled out for help and began running away from the soldiers. Devon was able to grab her arm and keep her from losing herself in the forest.
Now, hold on a moment. Nobody's trying to hurt you.
No! Let me go!
Hey, what's going on here?
The two soldiers stepped up. They had spears and thick cloaks covering their bodies. Devon smiled disarmingly.
She's sick, sirs. She needs to be in her bed resting.
The soldiers eyed each other, then stepped forward. One grabbed Tozhenka and the other Devon.
Hey, this isn't...
Quiet! Miss, what was this man do? Ow!
Tozhenka sank her fangs into the soldier's paw, drawing blood. She didn't let go.
Ah, you little bitch!
The soldier raised his spear, but the other stayed his paw.
Wait a second. I don't want to be responsible for a death on my shift. Do you know how much paperwork that is?
The other soldier danced in pain as Devon stood nearby, ready to jump in if the soldier raised his spear again.
LaRosa's beard that hurts! Just get her off!
As the other soldier approached, Tozhenka flailed her arms at him and growled. He stepped back, nearly colliding with Frey.
Whoa! Tozhenka?
Halen rushed forward.
What are you doing? Let go this instant!
Upon seeing her mate, Tozhenka let go and ran to him, flinging her arms around his middle.
Halen, where's our daughter? Where's Troy?
Halen stroked her ears flat.
She's safe. We'll get to see her soon. Don't worry. Now, come. Let's go back to our house and get you in bed.
The soldier who was nursing his bite wound growled at them.
Keep your fuck submissive. Don't let this happen again.
It won't, sir.
All four headed for Halen and Tozhenka's house. Soon, Halen had concocted a calming anesthetic tea, and Tozhenka was snoring in her bed. Halen placed a cloth atop her head to absorb her sweat, then turned to sit at the table with the other two. Devon sighed.
This never would have happened if Lar was still in charge. Not that he was especially pleasant, mind you.
Frey and Halen exchanged glances.
Change may come soon, my friend.
Cole called a halt. The sound of nearly 1,000 paws stopped, and suddenly there was silence. The Laxar grunted anxiously, and the few beast riders patted their steeds to stop them growling. Cole hopped off his cart and called for Geft. He came running.
Yes, sir?
Where is my mount?
Geft looked around with an ah before pointing towards a group of pack animals.
There, sir. The quartermaster is taking care of him.
Get the men ready to advance again. Make sure they are prepared. That forest is very thick.
Geft nodded and scurried off to find the other captains. Cole strolled through the ranks until he came to a group of animals that carried the army's supplies, at least some of it. Most of the equipment needed to build siege engines, food, small stoves, tents, toiletries, and extra clothing were kept in the rear guard, where Rita was. These animals carried food, tents, and weapons only. The plan was not to stop until the capital, where they would link up with the force from the north and besiege the felines. Cole's Pelesius was there. A four-legged beast with impressive stamina, it had a strangely flat face and long fangs. It grunted as Cole grew near.
Hello, Wind. It is time for us to ride.
It growled at him.
Fine.
He reached into one of the packs of food and tossed the Pelesius a hunk of cured meat. It chewed it up in seconds, then purred contently. Cole patted its furry head and untied it from its neighboring animal. He looked around for the quartermaster until he spotted the woman untying a bundle of lances.
Ho, quartermaster!
The tough, stoic dog looked over.
Yes, General?
Cole mounted Wind and trotted over.
I was going to tell you to dole out the weapons, but it seems you're already doing that.
Yes, sir. I suspect the felines left a token of force here at the most, though, knowing their hubris, I wouldn't be surprised if they had no troops at all.
Yes, well, good work. Please let Garth know when everything's ready.
Aye.
Cole bumped Wind's sides and trotted back to the front of the army. Geft was there, on his Policius.
Done already?
I've got word to most everybody, sir. I say they'll be armed and formed up in half an hour, tops.
Standard forest skirmish formation.
Yes, sir.
Good.
He climbed off Wind and looked into the forest. A slight smile played on his lips. After the four were sure that they left the felines far behind them, they dropped their pace to a steady lope. They were, however, slightly lost. Kethresh scratched her head as she tried to spot the suns through the thick clouds that rolled in a few hours prior. Arbalest kicked a stone and grumbled.
You have no idea which direction we're facing, do you?
Not helping, Arbalest.
Martin and Bronze were slightly behind the other two, walking in their paw prints. Martin's mind was elsewhere, and the absent look in his eyes caught the attention of Bronze.
Thinking about the end of the world?
Martin snapped out of his trance.
What? It's a muscular expression.
Martin shook his head.
I know. I was just thinking about some things.
It's about what Tezar said, isn't it?
Martin bit his lip.
Yes.
Bronze drummed his fingers on the hilt of his blade and thought for a moment.
I'm not going to try and tell you what you did was justified, because I know from experience that you've told yourself that 100 times already. We all helped kill that woman's mate, and it was because of the war that we did. We are to blame, but there's nothing we can do about it.
I know. But before all this happened, I really thought I could kill felines without much thought, because they're evil.
Or so you thought.
Martin stayed silent, so Bronze continued.
We're all Atrian, Martin.
A true Atrian would never act in such a way, coming into our homes and enslaving us so.
A shout from ahead made the two look forward. Kethresh had found a hill and was now standing triumphantly atop it, pointing into the distance.
There it is!
Bronze and Martin joined her and Arbalest at the top. In the distance, and over the trees, was nestled a black splotch.
The capital.
Martin squinted.
That's it?
Kethresh started down the hill and back into the forest, heading towards the black dot. Arbalest dashed after her, Martin and Bronze following behind at a slower pace.
Ask Kethresh where she learned to wield a sword so well, Martin. If you're lucky, she may make my point for me.
Martin noted that, but did not say anything. Cole was picking a scab on the back of his paw when Gaff walked over and tapped him on the ear. Cole jumped.
Oh, there you are!
Sir, the men are formed up and ready to march.
Cole patted Geft on the armored shoulder.
Then we march.
He mounted his impatient Policius and urged it forward. He raised his battle axe and slammed the haft against one of his shoulder pads. It made a loud, hollow sound that carried for a few 100 meters.
March!
The large army moved in relative tandem towards the tree line, pack animals in the rear, and Cole out front. The going was slow, and the trees thick. Their branches were so tightly packed that light from the suns barely reached the silent army. The only sound one could hear was the fall of heavy boots and the clank of armor. The canines moved in a line that stretched to the left and right for a considerable distance, covering most of the narrow strip of forest that snaked between the two mountains. If there were any felines, there would be nowhere to hide that wouldn't be trampled over by the canine soldiers, or so Cole thought. Orly had a spotless military record. At a young age, she was discovered in the rubble of a major battle site, crying without a scratch on her. She was rescued by felines, and was the youngest member of the army to reach a command position at only 17. She now crouched in a tree in the Ardennes forest, waiting for the canine army to march directly underneath her. In the trees surrounding her were 500 felines in leaf camouflage, armed with longbows. Orly spotted movement in the distance and took out a leaf. She held it in her paws and blew across it, producing a high-pitched chirping indistinguishable from that of an ace fly. The felines in the surrounding trees perked up and looked around, getting into a good firing position. Orly prepared to blow again when the canines had moved into the perfect spot. She grinned. It would be a bloodbath. Cole was riding silently, his mind wandering. He was listening to the insect song in the background and thinking of his home. An ace fly chirped, and he smiled. In the summertime, Cole and his then-living mate would visit the northern region of the continent, where he and his family would dine on the first of the short-lived summer fruits, made abundant by the great melting. The ace flies would sing their mating song and fly in droves around his cottage. He snapped to attention, raising his battle axe and yelling,
"Shields up! It's a trap!"
Moments after he shouted, an ace fly chirped again, and a hail of arrows flew down from above them. Fortunately for Cole, he caught the deception before his army was in the prime spot for an ambush. Unluckily for him, his men were not able to ready their shields in time. The air was thick with the long shafts as they whistled their death song. Cole was out front and without a shield, so it was pure chance that let him survive. The arrows that did hit him glanced off his thick armor, one sticking in the chink between his shoulder and torso. Soldiers were not as lucky. He did not witness the impact, but the sound of screams and the thudding of bodies told him everything he needed to know. The canines were not ones to panic, and soon formed a shield wall and began returning fire into the trees. Cole scrambled to get in the wall, and narrowly missed getting hit again. Once safe, he grabbed a shield from a fallen soldier and joined the wall.
"Start falling back! Archers 3-tier firing line in the back! Drop some of those felines!"
The order spread quickly, and soon the line of canines beat a hasty retreat, the archers at the rear taking shots at the dark trees, falling back to let the next tier of archers fire as they reloaded. This rapid-fire arrangement sent some felines into hiding, and others on a rapid path to the ground, but most kept firing, for the canines had little idea the exact position the arrows were coming from. However, Cole's thick wall of shields prevented any more noticeable casualties after the initial volley, which felled a good tenth of the force. Orly saw this predicament. She needed the advantage of the trees, where the lighter, more mobile felines would have the edge. If the canines made it to the open field, she would not win this battle. She turned to the 3 most nimble felines under her command and dealt out rapid orders.
Take half the force. Get them over those canines, then tell them to drop among the ranks and cause havoc. Once the wall is down, I'll send in the rest with bows and pick off the stragglers.
They nodded and swung off in 3 directions. Cole was gaining ground steadily. When he glanced back, he could see the light between the trees, where the battle would favor him greatly. He heard a grunt and saw another canine fall to his left. The gap filled quickly. He was sure he would regain momentum in the battle. He was about to shout words of encouragement when the arrows stopped and a new threat began dropping onto the canines. Felines flung themselves from the low boughs of the trees into the shields of the canines, bowling them over. The effect was profound. The more nimble felines were able to recover quickly and stab away at the dazed canines with short swords and daggers. Canines that were not jumped on dropped their shields and drew swords to counter the attack, only to be shot in the back by the archers above. Cole wrenched his axe from a writhing feline and shouted over the chaos of leaping felines and yelling canines.
"Run to the field! Run for your lives!"
A few pockets of canines able to put up a fight against the felines broke into an all-out run towards open ground, dodging around trees to avoid arrows. Orly estimated most of Cole's men were dead. A fight on open ground now favored her far superior numbers. She sighted down her own bow and took aim at the canine, still fighting a group of felines with a giant battle axe. She aimed for the head and fired. The unfortunate Arctic fox stood transfixed for a moment before falling with a heavy thunk.
All right, everybody. Let's chase them.
Zip crouched near the bottom of a shallow hill.
Yep, there are their tracks.
Zik grinned.
How old? An hour or so.
Tezar dashed down from the top of a hill.
You can see the capital from here. I think that's where they're headed.
Why would they go there? It's ours. Maybe they know someone there. Who knows?
Zip stood.
It doesn't matter why. I'm inclined to agree with Tezar.
He walked up the hill and studied the tracks that sat on its top.
See here? They stood and looked out over the trees at the capital for a while.
He crossed to the other side of the hill.
And here, the tracks that lead into the forest point right to the capital.
Zik was thinking.
Why only an hour? Why don't they have more of a lead? We searched the cave and slept. If they gave us the slip, then why do they only have an hour of lead on us?
He dropped his arms.
They left the cave area while we were asleep, didn't they?
Ziff chuckled humorlessly.
So they were there the whole time and we just slept on top of them. Seems that way, brothers. This is not the worst outcome, though. They have less of a lead on us than we first thought.
Tezar urged them on.
We don't want them to get a bigger lead. Come on! We can get help catching them from the city police.